What it is, what it do, cyber world. It is your girl, the one and only Ash Said It. AshSaidIt.com, AshSaidIt.com. This is the Ash Said It Daily Podcast Show. I appreciate you guys for all of your love and support. Over 1,200 episodes and 500,000 streams worldwide. Thank you guys so very much for that. Today, I am joined by the co-founder of Watershed Distillery, Greg Lehman. Hey, Greg.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. All
Right.
right, Greg. So tell us a little bit about the Watershed Distillery, the backstory, the story that no one really knows.
Sure, that's right. It's interesting. You know, my business partner and I met, and we loved this idea of being a part of our community. We both traveled for our jobs and worked for big companies, and we love the idea of being a part of a community and, being connected. And we love the restaurant industry. And honestly, we came up with this idea to make gin locally. It really started with gin, and no one was doing it in Columbus, Ohio at the time where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
And as we looked into it, at first we thought, oh, it's probably illegal. And then we were kind of looking around the U.S. and we found that other people were distilling on a local level. And this is back in about 2008. And so then we started questioning, well, why don't we do it? And there's two guys with no money and no idea how to distill. But we love the restaurant industry, we love the beer industry, and we love this idea of being involved in it. And so we thought, well, those seem like small obstacles. Let's try to figure out how to do this. And we went out and wrote a business plan and studied like crazy and visited some of those other distilleries and ended up figuring out how to make it and wrote a nice business plan. And pretty soon people started putting money into the plan. And I tell you what, it was this fun, cool hobby until we had a bunch of money in the bank and people asking us, well, when are you going to start it? And then it got really scary and it was like, yeah, I guess we're going to do this. And I remember my business partner and I kind of looking each other in the eye going, all right, as soon as we spend this money and sign a lease and buy a still, we have to leave our jobs at some point. Mm-hmm. Like, are you really going to leave your job? Am I really going to leave mine? And that was a big moment for us. And one that, you look back now and you make those decisions and definitely don't regret that one, but it was one that was a big decision that I'm glad I chose wisely on. But that kind of got us up and going. And we started really small and had a 66-gallon still. And people would come into the distillery after we had stuff on the market. And I remember people walking in and being so disappointed that was it. Like, oh, this is it? This is the whole distillery? We've grown a lot since then as we've pushed into other markets. But it was definitely small at the beginning, that's for sure.
Now, also at the beginning, what was the biggest challenge that you guys faced?
Sure. I feel like there were challenges everywhere, but one of the scariest things that people don't realize this, there's some states out there are easy to do business in than others. One challenge with Ohio where we're made, you have to basically have your product in a package ready to sell. And at the time, you had to go sit down with liquor control in Ohio and let them taste the product. And they would say right then and there, you present like a marketing plan and your price point, and they taste your product and look at your package and they say, yep, we're going to sell it, or no, we're not going to sell it in Ohio. So if you think about that as someone starting a business, we had to raise money, buy a still, sign a lease, buy bottles, like start distilling, make a lot of terrible product, get better and better, make good product, finally get product in a bottle, labeled, everything, all the licensing done, and then go sit down with Ohio and say, like, kind of like hat in your hand and be like, please let us sell this. I have vivid memory of that meeting, walking in and giving our pitch, and it was literally probably 12 minutes into the meeting, the lady in charge said, you know what, we like you guys, we like the product, we're going to go ahead and list you. And my business partner was sitting on my right-hand side, and he's still, like, hammering out the key points of the marketing plan. And I'm kicking him under the table going, Dave, stop, come on. They said, yes, let's go. We still laugh about that moment. But that was a big barrier and a huge obstacle. But there was other stuff too. It's not like a winery or a brewery.
Right.
When we started, we couldn't sell bottles out of our shop. We couldn't sell drinks out of our shop. So someone would come in and tour and see our space and be excited and say, "All right, I'll take a bottle of your bourbon and a bottle of your vodka." And instead of being able to sell it, we basically had to give them directions to the liquor store. You got to turn left out of the parking lot and head down here, and they kind of have a confused look on their face, like, really, I can't buy a bottle. But that's been a challenge that we've overcome, and we now have the ability to sell both drinks and bottles.
Yeah, the spirits industry is quite interesting. It's quite interesting, the ins and outs, and then like you said, every state has their own rules and all sort of regulations on certain things. So it's always interesting to hear other people's take on such
right
on this industry.
And that's kind of continued our challenges along the way. As we come into markets like Georgia and we get down, there's so much cool stuff going on in Atlanta, but for us, each market is a challenge because your liquor laws are completely different than ours, and so we have to kind of start fresh every time we enter a new market. I say that like we're in a lot of markets. We're not in a lot of markets. But
it's happening. It's coming.
It's coming. That's right. We're getting there. We're in some fun markets, that's for sure. We kind of try to look for the fun ones and take our stuff there first.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like those have been some of the big challenges with any business. I feel like day to day, there's always things that pop up.
Gotcha. All right, so we're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we're talking more with Greg Lehman. Yes, Watershed Distillery. And we're going to find out, moments of, the confirmation moment, the aha moment that happened. And as far as what else is going on at the distillery, the tours, upcoming events, all that good stuff. So you guys hang tight. We'll be right back. Did you know that some foods can cause weight gain, body aches, and extreme fatigue? These are just some of the symptoms of food intolerance. Well, what is food intolerance? Food intolerance can occur when the body cannot properly digest certain foods. This can result in acid reflux, migraines, and so many other painful issues. How do you find out what foods are causing this irritation? It's easy. Pinner Test. With 500,000 satisfied clients worldwide, Pinner Test is the #1 way of identifying foods that may be causing discomfort. This simple at-home kit is easy to use with results usually within 2 weeks via email. It's that simple, all right? What are you waiting for? Go visit pinnertest.com and use my special promo code AshSaidIt for your discount today. Welcome back to the Ash Said It Daily podcast show. I appreciate you guys for all of your love and support. We're talking with Greg Lehman, co-founder of Watershed Distillery. Yes, so Greg, what was that watershed moment for you guys?
Yeah, well put. For us, there's been several along the way, and I think the most powerful moment, and it still happens a lot, is when you walk into and this is maybe more like that confirmation moment of like, hey, it's working. When you walk into a bar or you walk into a liquor store and you see your stuff behind the bar, still, like, I still think it's the coolest thing to walk in there and you see it behind the bar, or you see it on a menu, and you're like, oh yeah, we made that. Like, me and the guys out back, we totally made that bottle of gin and bottled it up, put the label on it, put it in a box, and it made it here. And that it still feels great to see that. There were a couple of I don't know what the opposite of moment of confirmation. I don't know if I can swear on the podcast, but those moments when you're like, the oh shit moment, as we call it. There was one time when we first started, we're running a pretty decent sized business, and when Dave and I were probably a year in, and we really weren't paying each other anything at this point. We were still trying to make the business go, and so you do a lot of, my wife and I were sharing a car. We're eating a bunch of ramen noodles at night. Like, everything is like on low cost budget, and even the car we were sharing was about 13 or 14 years old. And so it was like everything, you kind of like trying to make it go and trying to make this thing work. And we were down to a couple $1,000s in the bank account at Watershed, like, but as a business. And when you're trying to like buy glass and buy supplies and all that stuff, it was a pretty scary moment. And so, if you run out of money, you can't keep going. And so for us, like that was a pretty intense moment. That when you get past that point, you felt a little bit better. And luckily we didn't have payroll at the time. I don't know how we would have done that if we had employees that were depending on us. But slowly we've grown and gotten past those moments. And not that they don't happen anymore, but hopefully they seem to not be as big, as I'm knocking on wood, as that felt, where it was like, oh man, I don't know if we're going to be able to make this thing go.
Wow. So now that you guys are in a few different markets, including Atlanta, what are some of the upcoming events, and how can people get involved with you guys?
Yeah, so we like to be involved in the community. We're sponsoring a couple upcoming concerts. So over at Terminal South, there's camp that's coming to town on October 6th. Actually, it's a band from Ohio, so we're pretty excited. We're going to have some cocktails there at the show, and there might be some Watershed swag out there as well. And then Ty Siegel's coming in November, and we're going to do the same thing for that concert as well. And then certainly, like our stuff's, we're certainly not everywhere. You definitely got to look to find us. We're in some package stores around town, Tower. I think Decatur Package has some of our stuff, and I know there's more. I don't know all of them. And then there's some restaurants. I know out at Pont City Market there's some places with some of our drinks. But we're trying to get the word out a little bit. But it definitely helps if people see our stuff or are interested in trying it. Definitely ask when you're in a package store, or ask when you're at a restaurant.
It makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
It definitely does. Yep. That way, when I go in there and say, "Hey, would you guys carry Watershed? We're this small craft distillery," they'll be like, "Oh yeah, someone asked about that." It's so much better than the guy looking at me going, "What is it?
What?
Where are you
Who?
from?" Yeah.
So, Greg, last but certainly not least, what advice could you have for anyone that, just like yourself, they have this passion, and it may be for the spirits, it may be for fashion, maybe for something else, but you turned your passion into a paycheck. What advice could you have for anyone that aspires to do that?
A couple things. One, definitely follow your passion. Life's more fun if you do. So I think you got to go for it. But I think you have to just be willing and understand that you're always going to have to be learning as fast as you can if you want to do your own thing, and if you want to turn that passion into a paycheck. It's going to be a constant learning experience. And I would say before you just jump and let's say, I don't want anyone listening to be like, you know what, Greg said, I got to jump in, so I'm quitting my job today. Don't do it that way.
No.
Definitely work and get your thing up and going before you step away. Make sure you understand what you're jumping into. Just like you wouldn't leave your job without having another job lined up.
Yeah.
Don't leave your job without having your business kind of lined up, which takes a little more work up front. But we sold our first bottles in 2010, and I officially left my job in 2011 in February, and my business partner left his job in 2011 in June. So we stuck around for a bit, and maybe I'm the crazy one because I left first, but we definitely made sure that we were selling bottles and we had some relative idea of success there before we fully jumped in, and I think that's a huge thing.
Definitely. Greg Lehman, co-founder, Watershed Distillery. Thank you so much for joining us today, Greg. Love those little gems that you dropped on us.
Thanks for having me in.
Again, let everyone know the best way to get in contact with you guys, and of course to follow you on social.
That's right. Follow us on social media. If you go to watersheddistillery.com, you can find info about us. You can find our social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. I feel like our photographer and our brand stuff on Twitter is pretty killer. He does an amazing job. And we're not too invasive. If you like cool pictures, definitely follow us there.
Sounds like a plan. I appreciate you guys so very much. Much more success to you guys, Greg. Keep doing what you're doing. 2019 is looking good.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having us on.
No problem. And thank you guys, of course, for downloading this show. I appreciate you so very much. Keep in mind, anyone to tell you that you can't do what you want to do, you look them square in the face and tell them, don't believe me, just watch. Watch what I do. Watch me make it happen. Watch me make history. That's what we're doing this for. Doing this for the history books. Social media is nice, but real life is way better. Until next time, you guys.